We also, as they have examined the planet, we really have to do something about our political and our power system. Remember now, they look at us as a total planet. When they come down, they look at all the different countries, what's going on, from the Saddam Husseins to the George Bushes to, the leaders all over the planet. And without doubt, they can state that all of the countries are run by people set on greed and power, with very little interest really in the general welfare or the quality of life. We have to stop this. She says if the consciousness of the people, the mass consciousness, does not rise up and start taking charge of its planet, then we can almost be sure that we're going to head towards a very difficult time of war when this firestorm they're talking about would be quite possible. We've already damaged the Earth far too much, so we can expect a lot of volcano action. We're going to have a lot of climate alterations, storms, and water inbreaks. Now this was she's talking about in 75. We're living in the 90s now. We're already seeing volcanoes starting to blow off. We're seeing the climate start to change. We're seeing storms, hurricanes, and cyclones in different parts of the world, especially here in America and in Hawaii, that are taking tolls that we didn't think were possible. She mentioned also that the whole countries will sink into the sea. It doesn't give them by name. It just says there will be large land masses that will slip underwater, and a very large amount of people will die from that. Also is coming a very serious war. And they didn't say where or when it was going to break out here, but Billy apparently has most of that information that was provided to him through his telepathic transmissions from the Patali level. What they're doing is they transform to him symbols and so forth so he can do Kabbalistic numerology, and he calculates these things to look into the future to see the things that are going to happen. We're obviously going towards a major war. We can't keep selling and providing all these third world countries weapons and so forth without expecting them to do something with them. Look just what happened with Saddam Hussein. Our great President George Bush and Baker for 10 years provided funds to Saddam Hussein for whatever reason. It's kind of insanity. We should not be giving countries like this massive amounts of money, allowing them to build up all of their weapons. I have no idea what they were really thinking when they did that. At any rate, what happened? We had a war, then we had to go stop them. It got out of hand, and George Bush had to convince all of us suddenly that Saddam Hussein was the bad guy, when for 10 years they've been building him up and supporting him and feeding him all these money and the ability to buy all these arms. Then suddenly we have to go stop the guy, using our young people, our money, and our military people, and trying to make us believe that this is a great idea. Well, things are a little out of hand. She mentioned also that for 2,000 years, the people who can foretell the future, people who do Kabbalistic numbers, that they calculate the future based on numeric values, that they have known for 2,000 years, again, this value of this 666, that this numeric value actually pertains to the word Jesus, God, Church, and Christ. There was no person named Jesus. Jesus never lived. There was a man named Emmanuel. In the year 189, they changed his name to Jesus. The 666 and the Antichrist stands actually for destruction of the truth. And it was the Christian church was destructive to the truth by not giving credit to Emmanuel and by changing the lessons of Emmanuel. Instead, they created the Christian church, gave it a name, the Christianity, changed Emmanuel to Jesus Christ, and created a God, a Lord of some kind, and told the people this is the way it was. So they altered things. They altered the truth. So what it's amounting to is Jesus is the value of the Antichrist, which is kind of an interesting awakening, huh? They also mentioned something else for those of us or people who are very intrigued with this, that the abbreviations W, U, V have something to do with the Antichrist. They didn't want to reveal exactly who it was, but he was already alive in 75. They didn't want to reveal exactly who it was, but they said that this symbol of the beast, which is quite commonly referred to as the sign of the beast, 666, that the beast isn't an animal, as many of us probably already know. It's just a symbol for it. And it basically refers to an organization that has something to do with these initials, WUV. Now, it concerns a worldwide organization which exists either in 3 locations or in 3 parts or something like that. It has something to do with a group. There's 3 units or partitions to this organization. The organization will become embodied by the church and her followers. And Billy wanted to know, well, what does WUV mean? Is this an acronym for the name of the organization? And she says, well, I'll tell you, but it's blanked out in the contact notes, and he's never told me either. Billy's very surprised. He says, because this organization already exists, and it's already a major world organization. But then he says, the name is not very much like WUV. So it's whatever WUV stands for, don't look for a name of a group using those initials. It's related somehow other way. Billy also comments to Semjase that there's a book by a man in Egypt several hundred years old named Cheiro, Cheiro. And he says it's pretty interesting that the proper numbers for calculating future events are in this book. And Semjase says that's right, because she says Cheiro actually lived about 1,000 years ago, was a future seer, understood the numeric ability, and actually could foretell the future quite accurately. So if any of you are into Egyptian books or studying that, you might want to try to find a book about Cheiro, who predicted the future. They apparently say that he's quite accurate. Okay, the 46th contact was on Thursday, February 26th, happened quite shortly after that. It was interesting that as Billy's driving out to the contact on this one, he's being followed by a red car. Now, this car, he's seen this several times following him. The interesting point was that Billy also had some people with him. And Semjase was having trouble, and she almost stopped the contact because the people that were taking Billy out to the contact, she did not know who they were. Their brain waves, or the oscillations of their brain waves, were new to her. And apparently they have a device in the ship that directs Billy to the landing location. And this device somehow checks the people around Billy to see if they're all known people, and if some strange people might be following him. And on this particular day, she noticed that the people with Billy were different, and she had to reprogram their brain waves into the machine so it would know who they were. But this little red car was following Billy around. So she suggests, well, it's getting more difficult. More and more people are finding out about these meetings and following Billy every time he leaves the house. So they're going to have probably start having these meetings even farther away and in more remote spots to keep them more secret. On this contact, she gave Billy some crystals, ruby, malachite, and some fluoride. She also gave him the 3 metal samples that he had asked for, which constitute the 3rd, 4th, and 5th processes in the steps they go through to actually make the metal for the beam ships. And she gave him a brief description of what these processes were like. The first step that it actually goes through is absorbing the lead out of the atmosphere itself. They get this soft metal, they call it, from the atmosphere and from plants. The second step is to clean that metal, the lead, and they extract different radiations from it. The third step is a heat process, very similar to our own, she says, where they heat the metals up and convert it into another alloy. Several steps are done of heating and cooling until it reaches a certain alloy state. The 6th step is, she says, is a secret which she can't really tell us, which affects the whole alloy and causes some major conversion process. Well, Billy says